up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time, for the first time since 2017, since really the beginning of this channel, we return with Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and pun intended, with the new album Returns. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
Yeah, it's been a long time. The last time I spoke with you, I'm not sure if you remember, it was the Starland Ballroom, the one time I ever covered a show there because of how much of an ass it is to get out there from the city, and it was the Ride for Dime thing, 2017, a long time ago. So, good times.
Time definitely flies.
You could say that again. But Returns, this new album, absolutely epic, excellent work as always. Thank you for another amazing music that we get to experience. Was there sort of like a preconceived vision that you had? Because this is the first solo album that we've gotten since Little Brother was watching 10 years ago. So was this like meant to just pick up where you left off, or was it sort of like a new beginning or a new uncharted territory?
Well, my first album that I ever put out on Shrapnel Records in 1995 was all instrumental. And when the pandemic hit and suddenly there's all this time on our hands to do all the things you think about maybe someday getting around to doing if there's time, well, now there was time. So I busted out a couple of acoustic EPs, just stuck them on Bandcamp, and then started working on some instrumental music. And I referenced my very first album in a lot of ways. The artwork, that first album, it had this thing flying overhead, this Bumblefoot thing, which is half foot, half bee. So it's a human foot with black and yellow stripes and wings and a stinger, and all this destruction below, the ground opening up, dogs vomiting, burning buildings, all this crap going on. And I was thinking, all right, if that was going to happen 30 years later, what would the album look like? Or at the time when I started working on it, 25 years later, what would the artwork look like? And instead of being this Bumblefoot thing, whatever that is, I was like, well, I've been using this guitar for a million years now, this double neck. So that should be the, I guess, focal point visually, like that should be the creature, that should be the mascot, whatever that you want to call it, instead of the foot, that, and might as well go spacey with it. And I was thinking about like Star Wars and Star Trek and all of that, and Return of the Jedi, and just the angle of the words on the screen and the intro. So the very first album was like that. It had that perspective, the adventures of Bumblefoot and other tales of woe. So I was thinking, Bumblefoot returns.
So I wanted to ask, is this almost kind of like, let's say somebody's just discovering you now, right? A young, inspiring musician, they just stumble upon your work. Should they maybe listen to the first Bumblefoot record to maybe get the concept of this? Is it almost kind of like a movie series where you need to watch the previous one to get the current one or something?
I mean, you could, but I wouldn't recommend it. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend listening to any of my music. It's really is bad for the brain. Especially, like, don't do drugs and listen to my music. So, or maybe do drugs and listen to my music. So, yeah, it was definitely using the same almost template in a couple of ways that the first all-instrumental album had, that this one was having. So, I didn't even want to do instrumental music when I started. I always wanted to do band stuff. I'm into bands. I'm into rock bands, metal bands, where people sing. And when I signed to Shrapnel Records in 94, it was under the, idea that we were going to do vocal music, and they were branching out and starting to do music with singing. And as soon as I signed, the head of the label said, well, just to introduce you to our fan base, which is all instrumental guitar music, would you please do an instrumental guitar album? And I was like, that's what I've been fighting to not do. And so I did it. No regrets at all. With that one, I had a song called Bumblefoot, which I came across that thing. My wife is a veterinarian. When she was in school studying, I was helping her study. We came across this ailment called ulcerative pododermatitis, also known as bumblefoot. One of the treatments, when a turkey gets it on their foot and they have this big shiny wart, you rub hemorrhoid cream on it. And it was all just so bizarre that I got inspired to write a song. I was in my early 20s. I found that very funny, and not that it's not funny now, but anyway. So I wrote a song called Bumblefoot. And when I had that record deal and I had to do an instrumental album, the concept just came right to me. Okay, it's going to be called The Adventures of Bumblefoot, like it's a comic book thing, and Bumblefoot is like this superhero character. And every song is going to be named after a different weird animal disease. Blue tongue, strawberry foot rot, whatever I had learned secondhand helping her study. And from there, after that, I went back to doing vocal music, and we did release an album with vocals on it and singing. The deal ended. I started my own record label just for my own music and got distributors all around the world and put out more vocal music. And every once in a while, I would stick on some instrumental songs, but more in the way Van Halen would do it, where it would be just the intro to another song or just something just in there. Spanish Fly, Eruption, the intro to Little Guitars, those kind of things.
Do you think of these concepts, because this record is also, I believe, 20 or 10, lost count, but like Normal, which I would say is my favorite concept that you've expressed in the Bumblefoot catalog, because I think it's a very relatable one, as I felt like as an artist who has had to, take those mental health measures, there's always that concern. A musician who takes medication and, you're worried in expense of your health, you would have to sacrifice your creativity in order for your health. And I was wondering what the memory was with making that. I also wanted to dedicate this question because it featured 24/7 Spies, who we just suffered a real tragedy in New York City with that. So I just wanted to kind of... you didn't hear? P Fluid was sadly taken from us a couple weeks ago.
Wait, who?
The 24/7 Spies frontman, P Fluid.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he was sadly taken from us. I'm sorry you didn't know about that. I'm sorry to break that news to you. I gotta
hit up Jimmy.
Yeah, tragic story. But what was the sort of concept behind that too that brought 24/7 Spies? I saw them play at Tompkins Square Park. I remember just a couple years ago they played at Tompkins Square Park right before I had to go run to PlayStation Theater to see Testament and Exodus, which was a great time. So what was that mindset like in that album?
Great bunch of guys. I was talking to Jimmy and he wanted to do another Spies album. And I said, come in my studio, we'll do it. Just, no charge. Let's make some music. So we recorded the album, and while recording that album, I was working on my Normal album. So, one bled into the other, where they're doing backing vocals for mine, I'm jumping in on backing vocals for theirs, and, laid some guest guitar on a couple of songs, and it was the album Face the Day that came out in 2006. And great album. And it was just, they were there. So come on in, we need gang vocals. Give me some gang.
And you couldn't have asked for a better group of guys to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that that concept, was that rooted in experience, or was this just like an idea that came to fruition?
Normal? No, I was depressed as fuck, and I was, reaching a bad point where I needed to do something beyond, what I could do for myself. And so I started taking some meds, and it did kill the creativity. It was like hitting a big giant pause button where I just couldn't, all the bad stuff was blocked, but all the edge of giving you that creative thing was blocked too. And I struggled with the decision. Okay, do I be happy and normal, or do I be who I am?
Yeah,
You
it's
know, with the good and the bad, and just make it work and deal with it. So in the end, I chose to be a musical nut, and yeah, and that's it.
that's
Yeah.
it's always such a interesting and cruel duality. Like the famous saying, when we are at our worst, art tends to be at its best and whatnot. And like it really is, because when you struggle internally, it is painful. Like, I don't blame or fault anybody for wanting to take the measures to just completely relinquish that, because it's cruel. But and then, like, the sacrifice of your art for it too. There is, like, it really is one of the cruelest decisions one can make with themselves.
But the interesting thing, I learned that if on meds you can fight off, overwhelming depression or anxiety, that means that you are capable of doing it in some scenario. So if it can happen, if it is possible, try it without the meds.
Yeah, and if it and,
Just
and,
like you,
and it
yeah,
works wonders.
you learn
Yeah.
that you can be that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you have to just kind of fix yourself.
It works. It works in both ways. Hey, in the end, hey, how many times have drugs helped the music too? So drugs are drugs. Nothing is more metal and rock than submitting and taking that corporate medication that just infuses in, and you have to you don't fight the system, you consume it. That's what it does. So that's my, or maybe I just overthought it too much, but
You can never overthink too much.
yeah, I beg to differ. But when it comes to when it comes to the concepts of your albums, do you like think of these concepts first before even picking up an instrument, or do you need to like have a couple riffs or a couple solos or patterns, and maybe that's how the story comes to fruition? Again, the reason why I ask this is because a guitar solo, in my opinion, is almost the same thing as a lead vocalist. It uses melody to convey that emotion and express that concept. I feel like guitar notes are its own language, like English. So how do you sort of come up with these concepts to express yourself?
Living life. That's it. It's not a musical thing. It's more like you come home from a crazy day and it's like, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened today. And you tell someone that story, it's just you're doing it through music. That's all it is. It's everything, every concept. Like the normal album wouldn't have happened if I wasn't really struggling with depression. The abnormal album wouldn't have happened if my life was flipped on its ass and just living like such a different, unpredictable, volatile, up and down roller coaster life when I joined Guns. So it's just life. It's just whatever you're experiencing, and everyone does it, whether they're a painter, whether they're a poet, whether they write movie scripts and whatever it is. When you feel like you have this story to tell that you want to get out and share, and you want people to step into your world and experience it like they're just like you're handing them your soul and saying, check out this, wear this for a minute. It's like, wow, yeah. Or someone that's experiencing the same thing, that you just want them to know that something relatable to somebody out there. All of that stuff. That's all it is. And then you just tell it in the musical language, however you know how to speak it, and everybody's different.
Depending on what the concept is, if it's more personal or if it's coming from an external source, or not even a concept, but playing with Guns, or playing with Silver, which I still love that song that you did with them, or playing with Anita Strauss, does it resonate with you differently depending on what it is? If it's your own material versus someone else's material, does it touch your heart differently, or in the end you're just playing the guitar and it's the same energy sort of applied throughout it?
You're always you, but you don't want to be inappropriate for the scenario. You have to be considerate of everything that's going on. It's not all about you. So, when you're doing your own album, it's all about you. Fuck everything. But when you're collaborating with people, you have to consider them and the direction and everything. So there's a lot more to consider, and you need to sort of narrow it down and say, I am not the whole pie. I am one slice. And I'm not going to take slices away from anybody else. They need to get their fair share. and we need to work together to make a good pie. So you just want to be a good contributor and just figure out, what is my role here? Okay, I'm collaborating with the songwriting, or I'm not. I'm just laying guitar stuff, or I'm just being told what to play and I'm going to play it the best I can, or whatever it is, whatever the situation is, and it's always different. My preference is to build a band from the ground up where everybody writes, everyone contributes, everybody is a vital piece of that pie, and it creates something that is greater than one person could ever do. It's you have in these bands I play with, 3 or 4 people that are doing something I would never be able to do or come up with. And that's what makes every band great, is that it's a combination of people, and there's just one in the universe like it. Yeah.
Do you, because when it comes to collaborating with people, do you need to be in the same headspace all the time? Or does maybe being, because you're your own person, you have your own experiences, your own stories and all this, it really isn't about being in the same headspace. It really is about, like, you said you're always you, but you have to adapt to a situation at the same time. But, every time, like, I interview a band and they say, oh, it was all a mutual collective experience, I don't buy that. All right, if you're in a band with 3 to 4 other people, there's going to be disagreements somewhere and different ideas. So how do you kind of be on the same headspace when writing with people to make the song sound consistent? Or does being in a different headspace actually help?
Being in a headspace is like going to a different location and you just feel different, or you just go into a different energy place. You're getting other people's energy in there. It's not just all your own, and it feeds you and it guides you and it helps you decide just what you're going to add to this thing. The thing about that whole, we're all happy, lovey, collectively working together. The way to make that happen is, and I deal with this with producing bands too, because when I'm producing, sometimes I'm just out to capture their best moment and make sure it's, in the end, people hear it in the best way. Other times, I'm adding guitar parts, I'm working on the arrangement, and I'm very much part of the song becoming what it's going to become, which is similar to being in a band with someone. Yeah. And in all of those things, what you have to remember is that you are not right. You just have an opinion. That doesn't make it right. And again, going back to that pizza pie, I must be hungry. If you are taking too big a role, you're taking away from other people. And that's not a good thing. You are denying the music and the people their input and what they can bring to it. And that's a shitty thing. You don't want to do that. If you're working with 4 other people, the way I look at it is 4 out of 5 of my ideas should get shot down. Unless just by luck, they happen to be in sync with other people's ideas. And if in that case, it's a bonus, it's a gift. But otherwise, when 4 out of 5 of my ideas get shot down, that means that 4 out of 5, like 4 ideas of other people are coming through. And I know how good it feels when one of your own ideas gets through. So you need to selflessly be happy for them and know that they're getting, this is theirs as well. And you're not just being this greedy shit,
Well, I wanted to ask, too, speaking of collaboration, another anniversary. This year marks 10 years of also one of my top albums that you were on, and that's the debut of Art of Anarchy. I love that record. As a diehard Disturbed fan, too, so, seeing John Moyer there was, of course, and of course, may he rest in peace, Scott Weiland as well. What was that mindset? Because that was not just a band in a way, but that was a super group. At this point, you've played with Guns. Disturbed, I think, was reuniting when that record came out. And this was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was the last offering we did get from Scott as well. What was that mindset? Because that is a great rock and roll album. Get Down, Till the Dust Is Gone still gives me goosebumps. Like, really, Aqualung too hits really hard. So what was that mindset?
Yeah, it's that one. the Voter brothers that are the founders of the band, John and Vince, guitarist, drummer, twin brothers, and they are just like a solid thing, musically and everything. I would record their band when they were teenagers, and like in the late 90s. And we always stayed in touch, always stayed friends. And in 2011, they said, we've got these 10 songs that we wrote drums and guitar parts for, and we want to make the album we never got to make, our dream album. We want to get all different singers on it, all our favorite people involved, and just make the album we always dreamed of. So we came into the studio, we laid down the tracks, and I started adding some guitar parts, which wasn't even the plan. It was just, hey, you want to throw a solo here? I was like, yeah, sure. And it was really just helping them, just helping friends. And the first singer that said yes to doing the album or doing a song on the album was Scott Weiland. And he did Till the Dust Is Gone, and it was phenomenal. And it amazes me how whatever I imagined for that song, he did something that I never imagined. Like it was a complete opposite or just a different world of what I was thinking, which goes back to the thing of just let people contribute. Don't try to control everything. If you just flow with it, it'll go to a better place than it would have if you try to just control everything and say, my way, my ideas. It's the perfect example of it. No one told him what to sing or anything. He just did his thing for every song. That was the idea of the whole band, album, everything is just let people do their way, their vision, whatever it is. And that's what's going to make it something special. So he did the one song. And then after that, his manager, his lawyer, like his people said, why don't we make this a band? He'll do the whole album. We'll help you get a record deal. We'll this, that, you know. And so, of course, they're going to say yes. And then we hit up Moyer and said, we got a band coming together. You want to play bass? He's like, sure. So, and that's how bands come together all the time, I'm finding, is that you just ask someone, it's like, hey, want to play? Want to do this? Like, sure.
Yeah, and
or I can't, I'm busy, you know. But most of the time it's just, yeah, sure. Like even Sons of Apollo, same thing.
Yep, great time.
Portnoy hit me up. He's like, you know, we always talked about doing a band together. Well, I got this idea with Soto and Sheehan and Derek, and we want to jump in the studio in March and just bust it out in the studio and make an album. You free? He's like, yeah, let's do it. That's all.
It sounds very organic at the same time, and I Sons of Apollo, one of the last shows I saw before we entered lockdown. So, good times, good times. I have two more questions for you. One is a very technical question, and that is the process of writing solos. Do you need to look at a song as a whole first to know what key you're playing in, and like need that background music in order to know what notes are going to work with it, or do you sometimes have like a whole solo written and then you just kind of have all the music sort of like revolve around that in a way?
99.9999% of the time, it's just listening to the song, feeling the vibe of it, getting familiar with the vocal lines, if there's vocals, or just the melodies and things happening in the song, the accents, just the overall vibe of the song. And then I don't plan anything. I just work my way across until it sounds like shit, and then I stop there and then continue from 2 seconds back and keep going until the solo's done. Sometimes it'll be one take. I remember with Whom Gods Destroy, that bonus track Requiem, I remember I was on a Zoom chat or a WhatsApp video chat or something with Derek and Dino while I was laying the guitar solo and just like chatting, and I'm laying it down, and it was just one take, not thought out, and just making the melody as I went. And I remember Derek, like he was liking it. He's like, yeah, yes, that note, yeah. While I'm just doing my thing, and yeah, sometimes it's just like that.
Works out with the best.
Yeah.
And this led me perfectly into the final question, and it's actually a silly question. So I've interviewed singers, bass players, guitar players, drummers, keyboardists. A lot of times when I ask how the making of a song goes or how the songwriting, I would say 99.9999% of the time I hear, oh, it always starts with a riff. Now, even you with your double necks, a lot of people with their 9-string guitars, or the guy from Cheap Trick with his 7 different necks on his guitars, do you think we will one day ever run out of riffs?
No, because it's not just about the notes, it's about the attitude, it's about technology changing the tones that you could come up with. There's enough ways to personally interpret a group of notes that it would be like saying, are we ever going to run out of things to say? Sure, there's only 26 letters in our alphabet, and there's a finite amount of words. It's a big amount, but nobody runs out of words to say, because it's more about expressing an individual's feelings and thoughts and experiences, and we're never going to run out of individuals.
I love
every single person is one. So
that's the best answer. We're never going to run out of individual. I love that. Well, every year I always hear a quote that sticks with me, and I always have like the quote of the year. Well, you just gave me my quote for 2025. I could call it a year now. So before we go, I want to thank you not only for your time today, but thank you for continuing to give us amazing music that really is just shows us why the guitar is one of the greatest things that the world has ever come. Is there just anything else with the release of Returns that you'd like to promote, when we could be seeing this on the road, or what else you'd like to promote, if you're allowed to say it this morning?
I've done everything I can to make it a very fun album release. So the vinyl is just like full of a ton of art and the just art, and even did for all the albums UV pressing, so it has art on the second disc. Did CDs? Did cassettes? Fucking cassettes. And even the cassette. Because what do we love about all physical stuff? We love the art. So I'm just making it where there's like a ton of art with everything. The music video to the single Simon in Space took like a year to make, of just the most bizarre stuff. If you watch it in slow motion, it'll just screw up your brain. 8 minutes of just weird, funny stuff. There's a free video game. Do you know about the video game?
No, I do not.
Okay. Made for the song Simon in Space, made a retro space shooter old school video game. It's free. Just go to bumblefoot.com. You'll see, if you scroll down, a little news blog thing about it. And just click on that, and there's links for it. And yeah, it's a super fun video game. What else? All the tones that I used for every song on this album are available at line 6. So if you have a Helix pedal, you could download all the guitar sounds, all the weird, because there's a lot of weird sounds on this thing. And if you're wondering how they were made, or if you want to just get that sound and modify it to make something of your own, those are all available. I have the publishing company Sheet Happens that makes great transcription books. I transcribed this whole album, the fingers, the picking, every single detail of every single track, every noise made by a guitar and bass on the album. And I'm going to put out a transcription book. But wait, there's more. What else? So the company Deco Records, that label, great bunch of dudes. So they are making the album available in retail. So if you go to a retail record store and say, do you have Bumblefoot Returns? They can get it if they don't have it already. So there's that, and they are immersed in the comic book world. So we're going to do a Bumblefoot comic book. And hot sauce. I got the hot sauce company. So I've had a hot sauce company since 2013 we launched. And I am going to do, in honor of this album, the song Moonshine Hootenanny. I'm going to do a Moonshine Hootenanny hot sauce. It's going to have boiled down moonshine, just flavored up, no alcohol, just the flavor when it's boiled down and give it like a nice Louisiana kick. And yeah, so doing a lot of fun things relating to this album.
Yeah.
And as far as playing out, I'm not going to be doing, at least I'm not planning at this point to like do like a tour where like every day a different city kind of thing. But I'm just going to jump around and do different random shows, events, festivals. Me and Derek, and we got Tony Franklin on bass and Vinny Appice on drums. We're going to play the Kennedy Center in D.C. April 1st.
Oh, hell yeah.
And then we're going to play the Canary Islands end of April. And I'm going to do a Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp in L.A. in February, another one in Florida in March, and more stuff planned in Jersey and New York, all around Chicago. So I'm just doing a lot of producing and teaching and incorporating playing into it all as well. And lastly, I just hope people enjoy the music. I hope it gives them a smile and all these little fun little retro kind of things.
Tapes, man. That's before my time. I'm I'm like in another zone right now. I'm 31, so like this was. I remember back in the day, for my music experience, I remember back in the day downloading my stuff on iTunes. If you wanted the bonus track, you had to buy the whole album, and I remember waiting till 11:59 p.m. to download. That's gonna be my memories that I share.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Be sure to check out Returns if you haven't already. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.